Welcome to By the Numbers. My name is Kevin Tocci, and I'll be your host for the next 30 or so minutes. This new program will focus on a key issue that resonates with town officials in both Whitman and Hanson, homeowners, parents, educators, and it's even debated on social media frequently. What am I talking about? The local budget, a municipal budget. But we're going to focus not just on municipal budgets, but we'll talk about department budgets, whether it's the school department, police, fire, you name it, right up to the state budget, which of course we wait and anticipate right around January, February for the governors, and then the House and Senate before, of course, they get together and figure something out for the governor to sign in late June, early July. Now, the mission of the show is to sit down with local stakeholders and get their thoughts and their concerns on the town's financial picture, and also gain perspective on the process itself. Now, it's going to be impossible to ask every known question in regards to the project, but the idea, again, is just we have a select number of folks that we're bringing in for the first group of interviews, and the second and the third, and so on, to get a better understanding, to better inform you, the viewer of Whitman Hanson Community Access. Now, today, a gentleman who is joining us is a Whitman Selectman. He's been on the Board of Selectmen for a couple of years now. We have Mr. Scott Lambiase. Scott.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on in. Probably the first question that I usually try to ask folks, depending on what it is that they do, what made you decide to run for the Board of Selectmen?
Well, I really enjoy living in the town, and I have young children, so the future of the town is important to me.
Absolutely.
But I also, on the government, I work for a municipal government local to us, and it's something that I enjoy doing. I enjoy it very much, and I think I have a certain set of talents and skills that, are probably very helpful to this community.
So, I have to ask you, when you're not, and you just kind of led into my next question, when you're not here in Whitman and you're not serving on the board, you also work in the town of Duxbury. What is it that you do?
So my title, I'm the Director of Municipal Services for the town of Duxbury, which encompasses a lot of different aspects of the town. First and foremost, I'm a project manager, in-house project manager, so for all the building projects that might happen, and there's always some going on. I also do all the procurement for the town. So any big purchases or anything else that, I make sure that we follow the state regulations regarding them. I run the inspectional services department, the licensing department. We handle all the liquor licenses for the town. We handle all the permits for the town. We're in charge of Board of Health, building inspections, safety inspections. We work with the fire department on, making sure that all your assembly occupancies, the stores, and everything else are up to code. So it's quite a bit. It's a good-sized department, and I get a lot of support.
How do you feel that your employment at Duxbury has helped you in your duties as a selectman here in Whitman?
Well, it's helped immensely. I mean, obviously, I have the benefit of experiencing what it takes to run a town and work with a really good group of talented individuals. In that town, it's a larger setup of government there. We have a finance director, and we have a human resources director, and they're all very talented, and I work very closely with them. So a lot of the work that I do sort of is intertwined with what they do, and some of that obviously helps here when it's, as a selectman, when we're dealing with employment issues or we're dealing with budget issues.
It's become the disclaimer at the past few town meetings, annual town meetings, that revenues are down and the town isn't getting the necessary monies in regards to state aid. In your opinion, are these accurate statements? Are these things that are not only accurate, but that are believable for residents?
Yeah, and it's, it's probably wrong to say that revenues are down. I think revenues are
Town's not generating as
Right.
much
It's not
revenue as it
keeping
could,
pace.
yeah, with the expenditures.
right, and it's not unique to Whitman. It's happening throughout the Commonwealth. The ability to keep up with the expenses is in many communities is out there, and it's a lot of expenses. It's salaries. It is health.
OPEB.
Yes,
Retirement.
OPEB is huge. It's
Yeah.
it's the big gorilla in the room. It's post-employee benefits are expensive. So trying to make sure that we can fund that, because we have to make sure we have money to fund that liability. But you also have rising health care costs, just operating costs in general for everything. This, if the people watching this imagine how much more it's costing you to operate your home. That we have so many buildings that we're trying to operate, and all of that. And I think we're a population that expects a certain level of service, and that comes with the price. And the only way, there's only, local receipts, revenues. We have some money from the state, which is not keeping up with these rising expenses. And then the rest is taxation. And we've been very careful not to raise our tax rate in this town. We try to keep it a very low tax rate, despite what, people might think, because they see their tax bill and the tax bills do go up. But that's also sort of the other edge of that sort of having a nice community, is that your home values are going up. So we can drop the tax rate, but if your home values are going up,
There's an ebb and a flow. You can't have
Exactly.
both. It's one or the other.
right.
And they kind of rotate. They're kind of cyclical.
Yeah, at times, yeah, we'll find that the assessments might be going down, but we're going to have to raise the taxes.
Right.
Because again, our expenses are outperforming our revenues.
Right.
And a lot will come out of what we're doing as far as our assessment and our community-wide assessment to sort of get everybody to focus on, what do we want for services? What do we expect for services? And what are we willing to pay for services? We do our best to keep those costs down, but a lot of them's out of our hands.
Do you feel, it's with a community like Whitman, we know on the South Shore that it's a conservative mindset, not necessarily as progressive as it could be. Do you feel as though a political mindset plays any role into a town's finances, especially if you're pondering a Prop 2.5 override, whether it's going to benefit a department or if it's going to benefit a project?
Yeah, all politics are local. Was that the saying? Sure, politics plays a big part in it, but this is for the most part, it's a working community. It's a hard-working community. There's a lot of blue-collar workers here. There's a lot of us that punching clocks and I know my own experience that it's sometimes it's tough. It's you can worry about the next paycheck or worry about next year and whether the job's still going to be there. So when you come to town meeting, and if you do come to town meeting, it's awful daunting all of a sudden when you see that budget and you see some of those numbers. I think that unfortunately, not enough people get involved, so it becomes more political because those are the players that do get involved are the ones that are more politically oriented. But I think that a big part of it is from our end, we have to get a message out to everyone on exactly what the process is, and I don't know that we do a good enough job at that, to be quite honest with you. I think we work very hard to get from town meeting to town meeting and to get a budget in between, but it's with the players that are involved, and it's catering to 100 and something folks that we know are going to show up, that we know most of them. It would be nice to be able to have wider involvement. In today's day of social media, there's got to be a better way of us getting the message out to them, rather than the messages that sort of spin through social media that aren't necessarily accurate.
Yeah, how does a community, and this is just kind of a general question, how does a community that has the town meeting form style of government and may have 10,000 voters but gets a mere fraction, and they struggle to get a quorum, what can be done? Is that something that has to be a solution down the road to get more people to get involved with the process?
Yeah, I mean, and then absolutely, that is very important. We've got the purest form of government.
Absolutely.
And it's amazing and it's great, and I'd hate to see a change, especially with as low a population as ours, because it should be manageable, and we should be able to get well over 10% of the population to be engaged in it, or the voting population anyways. And I think one thing I've always said is an important place to start is in the junior high and the high school, in getting them involved and getting them to know it. And civics is a lost
Huge
thing. And a mentorship program. Find out who's interested in civics and let them come in and shadow us. Let them spend a day in government like they do at the higher levels of school and stuff. I know there are kids that go off and they go to the Kennedy Center and pretend they're the legislature for the day. And that's important because otherwise, no, if you don't get involved, if we don't explain it to them now, if we don't try and get some interest in it, they don't know about it until town meetings come and gone. And all of a sudden they realize that if we were more involved, we would have known that they were going to have layoffs or project cuts, or this wasn't going to get done until it's too late, until they watch your show.
Good point. At this particular moment, Whitman is facing what's said to be a sizable deficit for the fiscal 2020 budget. In your opinion, what steps need to be taken to shrink the deficit and provide long-term stability for the budget?
Well, I don't think that there's no
quick fix.
Yeah, there's no quick fix. Budget cuts are going to happen, no matter what. We've talked internally, and I think we're in the process. We're doing a review of revenues. Our revenues, our fees, realistic. When was the last time when we went up on certain fees, and should we consider raising any fees across the board or not at all? But we have to look at that, and then again, we have to look at what does the community want. So any solution that we come up with has to be what's going to work for, the average homeowner. And we don't want to just across the board say we're going to just start slashing, because that's going to have some real profound effects. So I'm not. I think the community assessment, when that comes out, is going to help a little, maybe a lot, I hope. We had some amazing participation in it.
Yeah, you're talking about the stakeholders meeting that was held June 2018, and we had folks in from Bridgewater State University who basically helped put the questionnaire together.
Yep.
And it was something that residents it was either mailed to them or they were able to do it online.
Correct. And I think we're going to review some of those results maybe tonight, in the near future though, for sure. But the preliminary was looking like we were getting, 20% buy-in on this, which was incredible, as far as response rate goes. So if that's true, and if those numbers are reflective of, it tells you one thing, that people are concerned and they're looking to get involved, which is a great sign.
Yes.
And then the results of the survey, will give us an idea. I mean, it could work either way. I mean, it could.
What are you hoping for from the survey? What are you hoping comes of it?
I'm more hoping that people are engaged. I'm hoping that people look and say, we do have a lot of different moving parts out here that we have to be cognizant of. It isn't just a matter of, some people only look and worry about what's going on with the schools. Maybe there was a school program that their child couldn't get into because they were blocked out of it, and they feel as though we need more. But they never realized that, we also have to be thinking about the roads. We have to think about the sidewalks. What is a response rate for police and fire? The fact is that we live in a very safe community. That our police chief and our fire chief have done some wonderful jobs. But what happens if we had to make the cuts there? How does that affect you, and how important is that to you? I mean, it's to different people, it's going to mean different things, and so it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of it. But the fact that that many people are engaged and willing to fill it out, that alone tells me that we're getting some more involvement, and that people are worried. People are getting the message.
What was it like for you to fill it out?
It was interesting, knowing what I do know, I guess. You certainly don't want to favor any particular department. To me, it's very important. I sort of look at the community as a whole. So, if they're asking, what's more important to you? Is a school, is a classroom size, or is staffing for fire, is a senior center? It all works together, and there's a delicate balance, and it's very difficult to figure out what that balance is. But they all go towards what makes us a good community. We're an aging population. There'll be more seniors than children, relatively soon.
Right.
And, so is our senior center adequately funded? Because that's a very important place for seniors, and it's a very important asset to have when we do have that population growing. Are we doing enough for affordable housing? Is there a place that they can stay, that people can stay, that might not otherwise be able to stay in this town, and then where do they go? So, it's a very delicate balance. At the same time, we want our schools to perform well. Directly affect our property values if the schools aren't performing well. We want our children to do well. So we want crime to be down. We want a good response time from the fire department. And, so to figure out that whole balance, I mean, if I could come up with the answers, I'd probably, I don't know, maybe I could run for governor or something.
let me ask you this, and that is, I've heard that there have been whispers about maybe changing. What if we change the tax rate? What if we find a way to bring more businesses in? This way we're generating more tax revenue. Do either one of these ideas make sense?
Well, what we have to realize is so to incentivize it for business to want to come in, we probably have to offer a tax break to that business. Right.
Yep.
And that'll pay off in maybe attracting people who will spend money eating, drinking, enjoying the town, maybe move to the town, and help garner some interest in the town. So that is one way. Raising the tax rate is, obviously another way. But again, a lot of people feel stretched as it is. I mean, we've gone up on fees, we've gone up on trash fees only because we've had to. It's not because we want to, and it's not. We're not making any money off of it. It's just to cover the expense of it. But every little thing, the water bills. I mean, it all adds up, and at the end, people only have so much money, and they're going to have to be willing to decide. Do they want to pay more? That's another great area for them to get involved in, though, at town meeting, is to come out and voice their opinions on it. I think, again, once the results of this assessment come out and we find out that what everybody wants out of this community, what everybody's vision of it is, and we say, well, we can do that, but the only way to have all this that everybody seems to want is to raise the tax rate a point. We'll see what
becomes of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
My understanding is you have been asked to chair a very special subcommittee that will deal with the budget dilemma, or at least bring necessary committees together. Who else is on this committee, and what's the general purpose? What's the mission statement?
It's myself, Brian Bezanson from the Board of Selectmen, Justin Evans, and Rick Anderson from the Finance Committee. We have Don Byers, sort of our citizen at large, who is on this. We have a couple members. I don't have the Fred Small from the school committee. another gentleman. We have another gentleman from the school committee, Jeff Seismack. Simonak.
Yep.
Christine Sikow, I believe, is on it.
Okay.
So we're trying to get as many people involved from all, various aspects of the town or the town government. And essentially what we were looking for, or what I was looking for, or what my thoughts were, is we wanted to have a budget policy, sort of set in stone that this is how we're going to go about it. We're not waiting till the last minute, but we have sort of we have some philosophies and some, this is how, this is sort of a guidebook for the committees, because we're going to change over the years. We're not always going to be here, but sort of the best practices to follow to put a budget together. And what's grown out of that is that you have the key stakeholders together that also want to discuss, how are we going to get not only the budgets together annually, how are we going to get the information out to people, and how we're going to get through this current budget,
Right.
which is sort of looming. We want to incorporate things like capital plans, long-range plans. We want to make sure that we're following the best practices, such as putting money away, not using free cash for balancing the budget, having reserve funds and healthy reserves and stuff like that. So it's the policy and the written policy part of it's pretty much done. I think we're going to vote on it. We're working now, and they're just starting the work on putting on a 5-year capital plan, or a long-term capital plan that'll sort of get incorporated in it, but that's a growing, evolving, changing thing. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face, sort of, so to speak, that, we can put that plan out there, but then something happens, and the plan has to adjust with it. But the point is you want to have a plan. And, these aren't things that we're not doing, because these are things that we're doing. What we're trying to do is just sort of codify it, put it down as a permanent policy for all boards and committees. And like I said, the board is sort of, this subcommittee is sort of, because of the key players that are on it, we do sort of focus on what's currently in front of us and how to deal with it, and try to work together to deal with it. A big part of it for me, again, goes back to the old civics thing, is that how do we get this information out to everybody? How do we let
Better inform the public.
Yeah, because in this day and age, there's no reason that we can't inform the public. We can't give them a primer on town government, that we can't let them know, this is why we're doing it. This is why things are the way they are. And it's not because it's not being run properly. It's being run very well. But it's very difficult. We can't adjust on the fly like IBM can. We can't all of a sudden see that there's an issue over here and just react to it, and if it's a revenue issue, we'll deal with that. It takes an active town meeting to do that.
Right.
And, the best laid plans of mice and men, when things start going wrong, or if all of a sudden, oil prices and gas prices are going up, and electricity prices are going up.
All
and then
has an effect, plays a role in the budget.
and has a ripple effect, because it affects everybody's budget. And, as we go through contract negotiations, as we go through, different things that we're doing, and whether it's a project, a building project, prices are going to escalate.
Are you expected to put together a final report or do some kind of a presentation for your colleagues on the board?
Yeah, I think the final report will, have sort of a written document, which we have, that'll be voted on by the board. I think we'll wait until the capital plan is complete, and that'll be incorporated in it. And I think some recommendations will come out of it on the current budget and how we're going to, this time around and in the future, communicate with the public. And what I think, we need to, like I said earlier, I think we need to get on social media a lot more. I think we can use this program a lot more, not particularly by the numbers, but many of your other programs.
Use the access station,
Absolutely. Yes. And let people know that it's easier to watch it than it used to be, because you don't have to wait for it to come on now.
Sure.
You can go and look for it. You can
YouTube,
search it.
yeah,
You
that's
can
right.
YouTube it.
The Scott Lambiase show, I can see it now.
You can see.
I have to ask you, in your opinion, will the town, will this committee look at, or will town officials look at the budget and see if there's ways for better budgeting practices or make room under the levy limit?
Well, we'll certainly look for that, yeah. A big part of the committee is budgeting practices and finding the best practices. And so, yeah, we will incorporate those. And that will, a lot of that comes down to sort of simple things like timelines and when do we start the process, who's involved in the process and how that process flows.
Okay.
Certain information is sort of timely. You have to wait for numbers to come back from the state and, you do your revenue projections. We're working on, I know Frank's looking at new software that'll come in that'll help the town develop it a lot quicker. But again, that comes with a price. So there are methods to do that, but once that budget is established, and I fear that this year the case will be that the budget's going to show a shortfall. There's probably not much, that'll be done under the levy, but we're certainly going to work as hard as we can. But it may incorporate, cuts, and it depends on how much we want to cut or how much we can cut.
You look at the schools. The school district plays a big role in the budget process, and we know that there's usually a lengthy conversation when the annual assessments are put forth by the district for both communities. And it's been said from time to time that you don't want to see fighting amongst departments for that last dollar. You don't want to not properly fund the police and the fire and the services at town hall, as opposed to providing a proper education. But in your opinion, what needs to be done is to be able to satisfy the annual budget, but not at the expense of eliminating a town budget, a town department budget, or having to do layoffs.
Yeah, it's very difficult every year. It certainly was difficult last year, and it's going to be difficult this year. A big part of having the budget committee was to try and avoid have any department against department. We sort of want everybody to be uniform and unified and work together, which includes obviously the school and the DPW and the big ones, the police and fire.
Sure.
And we asked each of them, tell us what do budget cuts mean to you? And the answers are sobering. I mean, nobody's come to us and said, "No, not a problem. I can lop 3% off, and nobody will even notice."
Sure.
So the answers are going to be just what we thought they would be. It's going to mean, longer response time for fire, longer response time for police. Cutting programs at the school. The sidewalks that maybe we were hoping to get done won't get done. You may not be plowed out as soon as you thought you were going to be plowed out next time there's a storm. So
these are the ramifications of budgeting.
Absolutely, and they're going to. So they're not, they're not little things, and they will be noticed. But so there'd be at some point they'd be very difficult choices that someone's going to have to make. Boards, committees, but our hopes were, or my hope was, especially having all these key players together on this budget committee, was that. We looked at it unified and said, what's the best thing that we can all do? So if we all tighten our belts, we can avoid somehow having layoffs. Who's retiring? Do we have to replace them? Is there a piece of equipment that we can have for maybe 2 more years instead of replacing it this year? Maybe there is a sidewalk that doesn't get done next year, or maybe there is something that, we put off. And that's where we start. And then the answers as they come in may not be as simple as that.
Okay. And we typically try to keep this program to 30 minutes, but we're probably going to go maybe a minute or two long because I have 2 quick questions, and I feel they're kind of important. I'm going to ask you to take your selectman's hat off and put on your taxpayer hat and talk to me. Do you feel the community has the type of leadership it needs to endure and solve a budget crisis?
Yeah, absolutely. I do. I think we have some really good folks that are on the board right now, and we have a good administrative staff or administration. You know, and they're working hard. They're working hard all the time. You know, the fire chief, he's actively seeking grants and obtaining grants and replacing equipment. The police chief is, you know, always looking for grants and different ways to fund training and equipment. Lisa Green has, I think, gotten, you know, close to $800,000 or more, we've just talked about the other day, in grant money. She's put together all sorts of great grants, you know, the street lighting problems that we're having. So there's things that they're doing that are going to, that we're using grant money. It's going to save us money. You know, Frank's working really hard on crunching these numbers, and he's weathered some bad years. He's been here at the helm, and he's gotten us through some bad years. He's gotten a lot of projects done over the years, and you know, the folks on the board. Carl has, you know, been chairman, and he's been on school committee. Dan, finance committee for.
A lot
a
lot of leadership with stripes.
Yeah, and you know, Brian's been around for quite some time. So you know, and Randy's been great to work with, and you know, he's very bright. So you know, I think we're in good shape. You know, the current finance committee, as it's made up, you know, there's a few guys that have been on there for quite a while, or not quite a while, but for a while, and you know, and they're working hard, and they're really concerned, and they're putting everything they have into it. So I'm confident that we have the right players there. But the big thing here is the whole voting populace is the government at the end of the day. They all have to, as many as we can, have to educate themselves and be involved, and they have to come to town meeting. And if, you know, at some point they have to decide if they don't want to do that, then you have to make it a representative town meeting, because that's when the decisions are made. You know, we can put all the recommendations out there that we want. You can spend here, you can cut here, you can do whatever.
Great.
But at the end of the day, it's going to get voted on by town meeting. They're the ones who are going to make those decisions. You want to leave it up to the 100 and something that show, that's great. But I think it would be better if everybody could participate. You know, obviously we need a bigger room, but it would be
It's a good point. You would need a bigger room. If you have to do it at the high school.
Yeah, it'd be much more comfortable at the back.
Right. Problem is, though, is what if Hanson
Wants
also
to use it?
Yeah, and you know, they try to stimulate more folks to be at a town meeting as well. Could have a little bit of a problem there. To wrap up,
A good problem to have.
it would be a good problem to have. Last question to wrap up this segment, and thank you so much for coming in. Anything we haven't touched upon in our discussion today, but it feels important to at least expressing or at least discussing for a moment here?
No, I think, you know, the important thing is I hope everybody does pay attention to what comes out of the community assessment. I hope everybody, you know, gets involved. You know, avoid what you might read on social media that seems, there's a lot of mean stuff out there and misdirected information out there. And there's also a lot of good information. We do have some people who attend our meetings who come regularly, who were on committees and stuff, who put information out there, and a lot of times it's good information. But use your best judgment, and you know, watch a selectman meeting, come to a selectman meeting, come to town meeting, watch these shows. You're going to obviously get, I think by the numbers, is going to offer a lot of different perspectives.
I want to thank you very much
Thank you for having
coming
me.
in. And I want to thank you for tuning in. Again, the idea of the program is to better inform the two communities that we serve in regards to the budget process, the finances of the communities, and how the leadership, the community leaders, are working behind the scenes to be able to continue to, you know, provide the town with the best services and upgrade certain areas, whether it's building a new police station, a fire station, or a school. Those are the important things, because in the end, it's about the money that you're putting in as a taxpayer. If you have a comment or question, maybe there's somebody that you'd like to see on this particular program to have a conversation with, info@WHCA.tv. My name's Kevin Tocci, and until next time, you've been watching By the Numbers.
Thank you.